The moon tonight sat high and bright. For a moment, for a time, its vibrant light would fill the miles from left to right. I wanted to start with a view of the sky. It seemed, however, the clouds would block my sight. Plump, fat, and stained with a dark grey, filling their space, and there they stay. I began muttering to myself. It looks like it might be a little wet tonight, and that too is going to make me a bit late. The night. It was shaping up to be an unusually strange night, but still, no one was expecting a storm. At least, I thought there wasn't going to be one. I made sure I checked before I leave. And yet, one came pouring down, almost as if... "Mr. Miller!" my young associate Ty called out to me. "What is it, boy?" I replied, as I turned around to him, and there he was running toward me. He came right up to me, enthusiastic and exhausted, and right after catching a few breaths, he suggested, "If you want, I could give you a ride home from the storm." When I think about it, in my head, that's a great idea. But I live awfully close, and besides, I prefer walking in the rain. Being in the rain feels serene. Most of my worries are washed away from me, to be evaporated later. If I had to give it a name, I'd call it a spiritual shower, of sorts. His lack of breath seemed to have just disappeared, and he looked back at me with a confused intrigue. Watching him hesitantly scratch the back of his head, I followed up with, "Not to mention, it's free, so no extra cost on the water bill, haha." He seemed even more taken back by my terrible attempt to lighten the mood, but nonetheless he said, "It's alright. Just make sure you get back safe." Then he proceeded to leave the premise of the building. I stayed for a little while longer, just to watch the rain come down, and I saw Ty get into his car and drive off. I maybe waited another 10 minutes before deciding that I should probably leave also. Grabbing my purple retractable umbrella and whipping on my clear plastic poncho, I geared up to leave, opening the umbrella just before walking out the doors. In the midst of the heavy rain, I walked along the east side of the building because along that route was a shortcut I knew that goes through Office Park and always shaves a few minutes off my journey. Office Park is not the private park of the company, as some would think. It's actually a small wood with some of the wildest trees, 30 plus meters some of them stood. But that never really deterred me. Anyway, every now and then while I was listening to the pattering of the rain above me, I would glance up and see it descend to my already soaked umbrella. Of course, not without being met by the high branches of the trees too. When I wandered past the denser part of the park, I looked up again and saw what I can only describe as the storm devouring itself. The clouds churned above me, and a deep rumbling came from beyond them. And then, rolling forward as if to stand right beside me, a tangible bellowing cry among the darkness. And then, the lightning came and shattered the darkness, as though it was glass, leaving no mess. A savage wind came from all sides. A swirling, ghastly gale grabbed me off my feet, and I was gulped up by the gnarly clouds, like a surfer swindled off his board by a soaring tide. A flash of light followed, and boy was it bright. Despite that, beyond that point was a blur. I opened my eyes to find that I was right back in the denser part of the wood, only this time, the path was gone.